You're listening to the Womanpreneur Podcast. Empowerment in business and life. Thanks for tuning in to the Womanpreneur Podcast. This is Melissa Moats, and I am hanging out with my awesome friend, Amanda McEwen.
Yay. I just felt like there needed to be a yay there, just with so much enthusiasm with the intro.
I know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're going to talk today about the word
Womanpreneur and similar words such as boss babe, fempreneur, girl boss, all of those kinds of words that are pretty polarizing from what I've seen lately. And I know I have rather strong opinions about it one way. I know you have differing opinions, and you said that your opinions might surprise me. They may have changed. So we would just want to talk about what it means, why those words exist. Do they do more harm than good, or are they helpful? Why did we choose to use one for the podcast? All the things with those words.
All the things.
All the things.
So Womanpreneur, the Womanpreneur Podcast. Should we just kind of share on how we came up with our name for our podcast and the way we kind of, I don't know, just thought things through and where I was coming from and where you were coming from?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
You came up with the word, the idea. So maybe start with how that came into your noggin. I'm gonna call it a noggin.
Well, what happened was I remember you and I discussing how we are both women in business and that we were envisioning our podcast kind of, having a lot to do with supporting women in business or women who want to start business. And we wanted to empower our listeners and our viewers in business and in life. And I know we both were like, yeah, but we want to have a broader audience. We definitely want men to know that our content is, awesome and helpful and supportive, and just it's a lot of great information. And I remembered, we were kind of debating back and forth, like, is this word going to be limiting? Is it going to be confusing so that guys aren't going to want to tune in and listen? And then we were like, I remembered thinking, well, maybe guys are going to like it because, sometimes guys are like, hey, I want to hear what women have to say. So I don't know. I remember we were just kind of, it was so much about business. It was what we were focusing on. And then I said, well, since you and I are both women in business, we're women entrepreneurs, the word womanpreneur I thought was a fun word, and then just calling it simply the Womanpreneur Podcast just felt right. And I remembered we were throwing out a lot of ideas.
And they were all taken.
They were
Every
all
single
taken.
thing we came up with, like, oh, this one's great. Oh, somebody's already using that.
And it just felt so simple. I liked how clean and how simple it was. And both of us being women entrepreneurs, it just felt good. And in that moment when you and I were kind of working that out, my gut, like I'm really big on my instincts, and it just felt right. So I remembered you were like, all right, I can get behind that, but please, I don't want anything to be pink in our logo. And I was like, all right, that's cool. That's a fair compromise.
Well, sometimes when you're working in a partnership, you have to compromise.
Yes.
And I wanted to have more say with the logo than necessarily the name. And I wouldn't say I was that quick to jump on board.
Yeah. No,
because I don't like the words. Personally, I strongly dislike those words because I don't feel that we need to differentiate between men and women, entrepreneurs or bosses or any of those things. Right. I don't think it's necessary. And I think it kind of hurts us more to say, oh, we're not, like, we need a special category.
Right.
However, this is very polarizing. Like I said, I've seen a lot of discussion lately about these words, and people either love them or hate them. So some feel that it's empowering women to say, hey, we're one step above or different. We don't want to be lumped in as the same. We're just different. So some people can get behind that. But others think that it's limiting and just saying, oh, well, here's one more step where we're saying we're not equal. We have to be this other thing where you'd never hear a man say, I'm a manpreneur or a man boss.
Right.
which I kind of think I wish that they would.
I kind of wish they would too, because I think it's really fun.
But when we were discussing it, and I told you those are my concerns, that
Yeah.
I think automatically it takes away our male audience, because they're going to think that, oh, well, it's just for women, so I'm not going to get anything out of this. And we just, this is kind of why this topic came up, because we were at an event not too long ago, and one of our friends, he said, oh, hey, how's the podcast going? He's like, I can tell by the name you don't want me listening, so I haven't. And it just made me cringe inside. It was like, no, we like men. We want your input. We think we have valuable input. That our show is for people of all genders, and I want to make that very clear.
Of course.
But that was kind of why it brought it back around. But when we were discussing it, part of why I felt that I should give in.
Right.
No. It's really difficult when you're used to making all of the decisions by yourself to suddenly be working with somebody else.
Yep.
It's a learning curve. But you had done a lot of research.
Right.
And you and Troy always your husband, have this process for marketing, and he's really good with marketing and knows a lot, and you know a lot. And it's keeping the name simple, and the name of your business should be what you do. There should be no question what it is.
Right.
That helps a lot. And our biggest demographic is women. Most podcast listeners are women. So it made sense, especially because sometimes when you're too broad with a topic, you don't find that niche audience. And that's why, or niche, I never know which one is correct. Some people say niche, some say niche. I'll
I always
alternate.
feel a little fancier when I say niche.
All right. So
I don't know.
A lot of marketing tips these days, it says niche down, because you need to really hone in on a specific audience.
Right.
So there were a lot of reasons why I felt, as long as there's no pink in our logo, I can give in on the name.
I wouldn't even entertain the thought of having pink in our Womanpreneur logo, because I know how Amanda McEwen rolls. And I mean, when I think of you, there are 3 colors that I think of. I think of like a deep royal purple.
Okay.
I think of like a turquoise blue. And I also think of like a really pretty slate gray.
Okay.
Those are Amanda McEwen colors.
Yes, they absolutely are.
So that was just in my head. But going back to what you said, focusing on our audience, so much of what we talk about comes from our point of view as women, right? Yeah. And, like you said, having a niche audience and wanting to attract the right audience, people who really find our content to be helpful and supportive and valuable. A lot of listeners we have are male listeners. And but one of the comments that I found really surprising was from a friend of mine back home in Illinois. She's a gal I grew up with and went through school with. And she said, she put this beautiful Facebook post together. It was like a shout out to you and I. And she said, hey, been listening to a really great podcast recently. It's called the Womanpreneur Podcast. She said, so much great content. It's really fun to listen to. And she said, but don't be intimidated by the name. And that took me like really by surprise. And I was thinking, what? Intimidated by the name? Like, I guess I just hadn't looked at our title of our podcast through that lens before. Mm-hmm. And then I got really worried and I was like, man, do people think we're like these little fancy business ladies with little business suits and tight buns in our hair, and stilettos? I don't know. It was just an interesting comment. But to me, I feel like being a womanpreneur isn't that I want to separate myself from men in any way. I guess it's just me celebrating that I'm a woman in business. But I've never really felt, and we've talked about this before, I have never felt like less than or, have any kind of an issue or struggle because I'm a female in business. Right. I've never really felt that. I know some women have felt that, but I've never really operated from that place, and I've never really been up against any kind of an obstacle where I've ever felt that being a woman in business has been any kind of an issue for me.
Right. And it's never been any kind of negative thing for me either.
Right.
But I know a lot of people it has been.
Yes.
And when we can come back to the idea of it being a safe space, the reason I say that is I've seen in various groups on social media, whether they're podcast groups or there's one called Freelancing Females, and there's a lot of different groups like that. And I'll read through some of the posts sometimes.
Right.
And what happens is maybe there's a technical question they have for a podcast. So they'll post it in a podcast group, which is what they're supposed to be there for. But in the groups that are open to everybody, there's a lot of mansplainers out there. And there are these men that come in and they start with their condescending remarks about, oh, well, this is what you need to do. And just kind of talking down to them. They're like, hey, man, I'm not looking for that. I just need some help with this specific thing.
Right.
It's great that you know the answer, but could you answer me in a nice way?
Right.
And so they go to these female groups because in theory, we're here to support each other, not to knock each other down. Right. And it's just a safer space to do it when you don't even have to worry that there's some man hanging out on the other side of the internet who's going to jump in with some unwanted opinions or unwanted advice, which we do see a lot in those groups as well. So there is a lot to be said for having a space that is just for women.
Right. And then there's that old, what was that book? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And, we do definitely think differently and we operate differently and we have different perspectives on a lot of things. And so for me, coming back to our title, the Womanpreneur Podcast, it was just saying it, calling it what it is, So this is my surprising thing that I want to say to you, because you said, what if we talk about our name and our whole branding thought? I have actually thought over the last several months, I'm like, Amanda McEwen might kill me. But I was like, man, is our title of our podcast serving us well? Is it, the best name for us? But, there's again, a couple of different ways we can look at it. Now people are starting to hear about us and tune in. And I think once people have tuned in and listened to our content, either it's going to align and resonate with them or it isn't, right. So that's one part of it. But then I've thought, maybe do we need to think of a different name to, have we defined ourselves in a different way than maybe we thought going into this? Right. It's really hard to name a podcast before you've started the podcast because you think you know what your podcast is going to be all about, but then you start it and then you're like, it's kind of like when you're going to have a baby. And I really respect mothers who are like, and fathers who are like, we're going to wait till we see this kid before we name it.
Right.
you know, it's like, this is a brainchild. That is a child, but it's the same thing. And I'm like, I never really understood that. I was like, really? You have to see your baby before you name your baby? Yeah, it's kind of like that. And that's how I feel about our podcast. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I like it because it's the same to me with a cat. Or the pet. I mean, you need to see its personality.
Yes.
You can't just say, I like this name. I mean, you could. You've already named your next cat. It's Machka. So I know sometimes it just works. But sometimes you have one name in mind and they show you a different personality.
Yeah.
And I think that just, it aligns with business in general. I know when I was starting out my business, which it's funny that I just realized too, I'm like, it's called Aardvark Girl. I have girl in the name there too. Some people take issue with the word girl because they think that's bad and we should use woman instead. And some people don't like woman because some people identify with different things. Aardvark woman would not work.
That makes me feel weird.
But please don't ever say it again. We'll be fine. But everything is evolving so much and there are so many different types of people now that any kind of word that refers to gender of any sort is limiting to some degree. It's offensive to some. It's helpful to others. There's a lot going on there. We can't make everybody happy.
That all just wears me out.
Yeah.
I mean, I respect everyone's, gender and where they're coming from, but man, it's a lot to process and understand and keep up with.
Yeah. I don't give it much power to those words.
Yeah.
To me, girl doesn't bother me. It's a name somebody gave me when I was 16.
Yeah.
But I don't feel, again, like I shouldn't be now. I'm aardvark woman. Because like you said, it just feels weird. It's not right.
Because your soul is that of a girl.
Yeah.
It's like, your soul is still like 16.
Well,
which is great.
I mean, but I've pretty much been 50 my whole life. So I don't know if that really is really true. I was an old 16-year-old
Your
too.
mind can be
I could be aardvark lady.
60.
I don't think that works either. I don't want to be aardvark lady.
What's a girl, woman, lady all together?
Aardvark chick, see?
But some
And
people
some-
would think that is like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not provocative. That's not the right word that's in my
No.
mind. But that word is, I don't know, just not right.
Right. Well, some people don't like chick. Again, sometimes words are acceptable and then over time they're not anymore.
Words
just
are a
can't-
tricky thing, my friends.
Yes.
And I just think if you're always I think it's more about the intention behind the words that you're saying than the words themselves. And you know what you're saying and you know what you mean. And I think if you're coming from a place of love and kindness and the things that you are saying are that of kindness and love, some of those little like chick, I don't know. I just wouldn't be offended by it.
Right. I'm not easily offended in general.
And there are a lot of people out there who are looking to be offended.
Right.
So maybe you guys just stop doing that. It's just really, really boring.
Right.
It is.
That's about as simple as we could get with that. Is just don't worry about it.
Just stop
That's
being
fine.
offended. I'm offended. Everybody's so offended.
I had other people who said, oh, well, you shouldn't let people know in your business, A, that you're a female, B, that it's just you. There was a lot of advice. It did come from men, but it was, and I know authors who have struggled with this they don't get the same opportunities when people know off the top, who are you? Right. And I've seen in some of these other groups, women saying, well, I've submitted resumes with my full name and I've submitted resumes with just initials. And I got more calls back on the ones that were just initials.
Interesting.
And I don't know if there's any science behind that. It could be completely random, not connected at all. There's a lot of things to think about.
Right. What about us all just being human beings? Yes. We're all just beings, and
we could be the Personpreneur podcast.
Personpreneur.
I mean, there's some good alliteration there.
Yes.
It's hard to say.
When we shut off the lights, we're all the same. Yes. And I just think that that's a beautiful thing. And I don't know. We're the humanpreneur.
The humanpreneur.
Humanpreneur podcast.
I think it is the preneur that gives trouble. It's preneur on its own. Entrepreneur is a hard word to say.
So I don't know, girl. I'm keeping it real. I mean, we're keeping it so real on this podcast. Yeah. So I felt very deeply passionately.
Okay.
Is that right? Is that
if
grammatically
that's how you
correct?
Feel, it's right.
Anyway, I was super passionate about the Womanpreneur podcast because I did really feel like our tribe was going to be more women than men. And again, not to exclude the men, but now looking back at it, I'm like, are we going after a niche audience? This is all new. This is all new to us. We've never had a podcast before. This is a brand new journey. We're a good year in, and I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
I just love that we have a podcast. And sometimes people are like, why do you have a podcast? Or is it hard to have a podcast? And I get all these random questions, and I'm like, it's a commitment.
It's a commitment for sure. Time and money and other resources.
Time, money, and other resources. That is a really good way to put it. And, there have been days when you and I have been exhausted and we haven't been like, oh, we've got to do our podcast shoot because we have to keep so many, in the queue and ready to go. And there's a lot of writing that goes into it, and social media, and editing. Just a little shout out to our awesome friend Shane Sharp.
Hi, Shane.
Hi, Shane.
This time our shout out is for everybody to hear, not just before we start recording the episode.
Yes, the audio artist, our awesome guy, and he is so supportive of us, and he edits our stuff for us each time. And I mean, we've got Abby Moats here who helps set everything up, and Brent Mukai is our producer. I mean, we've got a lot of people who help us, but I mean, it's time consuming and it's a labor of love. But I'm glad we do it.
I am too. And, to kind of go back, we had mentioned how we started doing one thing and then things kind of changed.
Yeah.
And that's how it went with my business. I started with a very clear path. I made my whole website and developed it based on doing this one thing. And then as the years have gone on, it's evolved a number of times. And at one point I had to completely redo my whole website, rewrite everything, change focuses on things, move things around because it decided what it was going to be. I didn't. And so that's kind of how a lot of businesses go. You start off with the best intentions and a clear goal and a path, and then other things happen. And it's fine if you want to change it as you go. I wouldn't kill you if you wanted to change the name. I wouldn't kill you if you wanted to keep the name the same. I would never kill you in general.
Well,
I mean, just
very
in
nice
general.
of you.
I just
because
want to
then
put
it would
that
be
out
lonely
there.
on this podcast without me. You just have to talk to this chair.
I would have to talk it myself.
No one would sing to you.
I know.
It would be very sad times.
It would be very, very sad. I think a lot of people would be very sad if there was no Melissa Moats in the world.
Well, thank you for that. And I will say though, one of my favorite things about doing this podcast is when I get these little surprising comments in person usually. And I know you have as well, where I'll be at the studio and a student will come up to me and say, "Oh, I love your podcast so much. You and Amanda are so fun." And I totally relate to Amanda on certain things, and I relate to you on other things. And so many people have said that there's just been something about our podcast that's been so helpful for them. And that makes it all worth it.
Right.
I don't care if it's one person, it just makes us feel so good to know that these conversations that we're having, we enjoy sharing them. Right. We enjoy our time together, and that the conversations we're having are just helping other people in big ways and small ways and every way in between. So,
and we've talked about it before that no matter what you do, there are going to be people who love it and hate it. So it's not that important what the name of our podcast is. Right. If it makes us hard to find, that's the problem. If it makes people not want to listen just because of the word, that's a problem. But if you see the photos of us being goofy and you read the descriptions and some of the reviews, and if you want to give us a review, that would be great. I'm just going to throw that in there.
We do really appreciate reviews.
But if you check it out and you look at our site or our social media pages or wherever you stalk people before you decide what you think about them, the name's not going to be enough to say, oh, well, they use the word womanpreneur and I don't want to use that. I don't want to listen to that.
The other part of our name, our little tagline, is empowerment in business and in life. I think that says quite a bit. So I don't care who you are. If you want to feel empowered about business and life, that's what we're all about. I mean, wouldn't you say? After 50 some odd episodes, what do you think we're all about, Amanda McEwen?
What do I think that we're all about?
What do you think we are? That's what it's all about.
Well,
you put your right elbow in.
No.
Oh, no,
I'm
that's
not
my
doing
left.
Hokey pokey. That's on my no list.
Okay, well, mine too, usually. I broke my own rule.
Sometimes, people change. It happens.
I love to sing for you guys, but we're not going to go hokey pokey.
But what I'm finding most interesting maybe about this whole thing is what people are connecting to. They're in the commentary that I've received, people are grateful for the content. The business tips are applicable to their businesses, to their lives. That is helpful stuff. But people are really connecting with the personalities and our differences and our, as we always say, our odd couple vibe, because we're kind of funny together, and we don't always try to be. And I don't mean that from a point of, oh, we're so funny, but there are times when funny. We argue about trees. There's times when Melissa goes into deep detail about her specific shirt that she loves so much, and it just makes me roll my eyes a little bit.
Can we just tell these awesome people who are listening right now that when you walked in today, you petted me?
I did pet her. She's wearing a fuzzy jacket. And last time she wore something fuzzy, she asked me to pet it. So this time I just took out I didn't want to make her work too hard for it. I thought, I don't high five her. I should just, I'm going to throw her a bone here, and I'm just going to pet her without asking, which technically I don't think you should pet somebody without asking. I think you should have consent.
You and I have that level of friendship and understanding that if you wanted to pet my jacket, I'd be okay with it at any time. Permission granted for eternity.
Thank you. And it was just your arm. I just petted your arm.
Thank you.
Petted.
Petted. And speaking of keeping it real here on the Womanpreneur Podcast, I will say, I remember when we first started doing this and we were like, yeah, we'll just dress casually and we'll be ourselves and, whatever each week. And I said, there's going to come a time when I'm going to need to show up in like my workout gear because I'm not going to have time to get all beautified and camera ready.
Oh, yeah. We don't have makeup artists on our team. We don't have wardrobe stylists.
I know it's hard to believe, friends.
I know everybody's shocked. You need to rewind and hear that again and just take a moment to process.
Her beauty is this natural. But yeah, today was one of those days where I had a choice. Either A, eat, or B, shower and blow dry out my hair with a round brush. And we all know that takes time. So I opted for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Can I just tell you about that for a second?
Sure.
I had Dave's Awesome Bread. Mm-hmm. If you don't know about Dave's Awesome Bread,
it's Dave's Killer Bread.
Dave's Killer Bread?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Killer awesome, bread. But it's technically called Dave's Killer Bread.
My bad. Wrong adjective. Maybe I call it Dave's Awesome Bread at my house.
I'm just trying to make it easier for the people to find it if they want to try it, because it is fantastic.
If you have not had Dave's Killer Bread yet, get to the store immediately. Drop what you're doing and go buy some. What I like is you have choices. You can have baby bread or you can have big bread.
Yes. And we talked about this. You go for the baby bread. I go for the big bread because I'm a little bit hungrier than you are.
I know. Well, and today I had some baby bread, baby killer bread. I had some crunchy peanut butter.
Has to be crunchy.
And grape jelly. And I had the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I think, of life. Today.
You lost me at grape jelly, but
whatever. It matches.
Had me until then.
It matches my sweater or my Sherpa, whatever I'm wearing.
So, obviously, you can only eat what matches your clothing.
Obviously.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be a very good womanpreneur.
I would be a terrible womanpreneur if I was not color coordinated. But yeah, so I had that and I was like, you know what? Amanda McEwen loves me. I'm going to just have my hair in a ponytail today and I don't have time to like have awesome volume with my hair. So,
and see, this is another thing. This is why sometimes it's okay if we want to be in a different category that men aren't necessarily as involved in.
Right.
Because they don't understand that sometimes we're not going to put on makeup and we're not going to be able to be our best looking, even though there's this camera involved.
Yeah.
Just can't keep it up. Sometimes we just have to make choices. Food is more important than appearance. I will stand behind that wholeheartedly.
I know you will. Yeah. You understand.
But sometimes men just wouldn't understand and appreciate that struggle the way that we do.
I feel like being a womanpreneur means sometimes choosing food over fashion and hair volume.
Yes.
And I'm okay with that. Yeah. I also want to say I'm not afraid of this camera anymore.
I'm glad to hear
I'm
that.
looking at it right now.
Yeah.
Like a boss babe.
that
just made your stomach hurt.
It does. That's why
it made my stomach hurt.
When I said it earlier, that's why there was a pause first.
I know.
But to each his own, to each her own. That's fine. Some people really like that. And it's not, and I think it's changing the conversation. It doesn't mean you're a boss babe. So that means that you're not just a boss. Yeah, boss could mean either or. It doesn't matter. You're taking it one step further and like, yeah, I'm a girl and I'm a boss. I'm a girl boss.
Yep.
Cool.
No, and when I said like it made my stomach hurt, it's just not comfortable for me.
Right.
Like that. I think we all have our unique personalities. We all have things that just super work for us and things that don't. And that's okay. More power to the boss babes. And I'm right here supporting you. It's just not a word choice that I would feel personally aligned with for me to represent me. And when you're branding yourself, this is an important part of the conversation, I think. When you're branding yourself, there are going to be different phases, I think, of it. Because I think going into something, you might think you have a clear, picture of what your branding looks like and who you are. But like you said, your branding can take on, your business can take on a life of its own. Therefore, your branding takes on a completely different life of its own. And I know like for my voiceover branding, I didn't have a voiceover brand for like the first 18 years. Everyone was like, Melissa, what's your branding? Like everybody was all about this branding conversation and it used to make my stomach hurt. I was like, I don't know. I'm the Melissa Moats brand. I'm like Bounty paper towels. I'm just like, I'm Melissa
You're not
Moats.
the brawny man?
No, I'm not. But I was like, I don't know. I'm just me. I'm Melissa Moats. I don't know. And it took me, a good 18 years to realize that my whole career, 20 years in, 2 decades of voice acting, that what I've been doing for 20 years, I've been creating my own luck. And I also live in Las Vegas. So Lady Luck voiceovers just made sense because it was more than just a visual branding. It was deep for me. It was like, I love this city. I love Las Vegas. I love creating my own luck. And I definitely think that I am a lady. So I was like, Lady Luck voiceovers, that's where it's at.
See, why is it when you say lady, it sounds like that? But if it's lady, for me,
Hey,
it's like
lady.
old lady, it's cat lady. Like there's all negative ladies if they're tied to me. Like when I said aardvark lady before,
Aardvark.
it doesn't work. But Lady Luck, it has it's the same word, but it's completely different.
It's just the word combo, like aardvark lady, aardvark woman. It's just bizarre. But aardvark girl is like wholesome and it's you. And I love it.
This is related, but it's unrelated at the same time. But really what it is, it's how we give power to different things and how our opinions can be so divided.
Yeah.
Because in these similar discussions about the names of podcasts and the names of female entrepreneurs, I've seen a lot of debates about whether people should use photos for their podcasts.
Really?
And some people are adamantly against photos of the host unless they're well-known celebrities. To a point, I read one discussion that was happening, and then one person had said, I won't even listen to a podcast if the hosts have their photos. Now, to me, I want to see the people who are talking, not as in a place of judgment. I'm all for you should just give something a chance regardless of what the people look like. But I think there is a way that you can convey personality in a photo.
A picture says 1,000 words. And
so do my facial expressions, I think.
Yeah,
sometimes.
your facial expressions do say a lot.
Melissa's being cheesy again.
You're very expressive, Amanda McEwen. But you know what I think? See, I'm on the opposite side of that comment because I think that when you get a chance to see a picture of someone, I feel more personally connected.
Yep.
I like to know what people look like and it's fun.
And I think for us specifically, because in the beginning, we didn't have ourselves in the photo. We just didn't have any. And when we changed it, I think it made a difference. I still think we could do another photo and make it even better. But just being able to show, because our personalities are different. And like you said, we don't want people to think we're wearing pantsuits and have buns in our hair and, pencil
little
and
tiny briefcases.
Right. We don't want any of that. So for us, the photo helps because we always say we're not stuffy business. We're a business podcast, but we're also very casual. So it's not a super scripted, here's a bullet point, which some people want the bullet point list of items and here's what we're going to talk about. And it's very regimented. That doesn't work for us.
We're business casual.
Yeah.
We just like to let the conversation organically open up. And I mean, obviously we always have a focus and some talking points, but we like to keep it loose. I like to see where things go.
I do too.
Because sometimes our podcasts go in a completely different direction than we had originally thought.
Yes. Just like a business. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we change direction right in the middle.
And you know what? That's okay. Won't it be interesting to see if we stay the Womanpreneur Podcast or if we change our name? And I would be interested to know for our listeners, our loyal listeners and fans, if you were to rebrand us or rename us, what do you think would be a suitable name for us? I mean, I think business casual is kind of fun. Mm-hmm. I also think the odd couple is kind of fun. We can't say 2020 odd couple because the years are going to keep on rolling.
And we can't say odd couple because it's already been used.
I know. Oh yeah, that would be copyright.
Yeah. And see, you can. There are sometimes multiple podcasts with the same name, but it's just
true.
We know better, and so we won't do that.
We won't do that. But
she's very disappointed by that.
I am. Wah, wah.
It's okay.
But I'd be curious as to what other people think because they tune in, they listen to our content, they know what we're all about. We really do want to be helpful and supportive and full of empowerment in business and in life. And I think that's what we've shared in 50 some odd episodes.
50 some odd.
50 some odd. You would know. You're the one with the color-coded spreadsheet.
It's 55, I believe. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe 55.
Wow.
Yes. Well, we'll find out. We don't have a fact check at the end. Like some podcasts have a fact check at the end where they clarify any mistakes throughout. We don't have that.
We don't fact check.
50 some odd works.
50 some odd is just fine.
Yeah.
But
I would be curious. So here are the challenge for you, or not even a challenge. Just take 1 minute, and just send us a little note or a comment. Number 1, do you think we should change our name? Number 2, if you do, what do you think would suit us better? If you wanted to throw that on our social media or send us an email to womanpreneurpodcast@gmail.com. This isn't one of those things where sometimes people just say, oh, send us a message, and they don't really want to know. We want to know because we need the outside opinion, and we're not going to get offended if you say, hey, I hate your name. It's fine.
It's fine.
So
I can handle it. And my thing was I named our baby. And it was a big responsibility. And Amanda kind of made one of her faces, but she was like, all right, I'm going to go with you and no pink. And,
what it comes down to, there's trust between Melissa and I.
Yes.
We both listen to our instincts a lot. Mm-hmm. We both had very differing instincts on this one.
Yeah.
But yours was stronger than mine.
Yeah.
I wasn't, if I felt wholeheartedly this was a bad move for us, we would have continued the discussion.
Talking. Yeah.
But I didn't. You felt very strongly. You backed it up with what I need is research and facts. And you said, look, there's even a whole category of podcasts for womanpreneurs. Yeah. And I said, okay. So who am I to argue? And when I'd done the research on my end, and there was I think it was Jenna Kutcher, had said it was like 90-something% of her audience was female. And she has a gigantic audience. So it seems pretty clear you don't want to put too much effort into not alienating a part of the population that's probably not going to listen to you anyway.
Right.
So,
and my thought was, we've got to start somewhere, and we all have to start somewhere. So I'm able to say comfortably that in that moment, I was trusting my gut, and I did do a lot of research, and it felt like the right name for us. But, have we evolved in a way that a different name is a better fit for us? It'll be interesting to see what other people say. So,
and you want to know one great thing?
What?
Our logo is perfect already, so we don't have to change that. You could just chop off some words and put new words in the place.
I
and
love
we're
our
good
logo.
to go.
I love our logo.
And see, so here's the funny thing. I know I said before I was saying something not trying to be egotistical, and it's going to be really egotistical, because to me, looking bigger picture, we're going to get to a point where the logo is all that we really need to be identified.
We're going to be like Coca-Cola.
Right.
And, you just see the red and the white and the wavy lines and you're like, yeah, it's Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
People are going to see that logo and just know that someone is going to sing to them. Someone is going to make faces, and there's going to be some learning somewhere in between.
So to sum up our podcast, it's singing, faces, and some learning in between. Maybe that's our new tagline.
That is profound right there.
New podcast name, singing, faces, some learning along the way.
But you know what? That's what life is all about. We are constantly learning, and it's a beautiful thing. So yeah. Well, we hope you guys have a great day, and we really appreciate you tuning in. We really do hope that you give us some feedback, because we're really curious about this one.
If we ask really nicely, please.
So whatever you're doing right now, maybe stop that and just write to us.
Yeah. Stop whatever you're doing.
Except if you're driving.
Right.
Be safe.
Yes. Yes.
But thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning into the Womanpreneur Podcast. Until next time, you've got this.